Organization and management of educational programs for children with special needs. Today, under this, we are going to deal with the topic recent initiatives in special education. The objective of this lesson is to understand all the recent initiatives for special education for the children with special needs. The schemes dealing with children with special needs can be categorized into the educational and supplementary schemes. The educational schemes, they include the integrated education of the disabled children, and the supplementary schemes include the scholarships as well as the assistance to disabled persons for purchasing and fitting of the aids and appliances. Now, let us have a look at the educational schemes for children with special needs. First one is the integrated education of the disabled children. The Government of India's appreciation of the need to integrate the children with special needs came in the year 1974 when the Union Ministry of Welfare launched the centrally sponsored scheme of the integrated education of disabled children. The integrated education for disabled children revised again in 1992 by the central government, and it was one of the first such schemes in this area. The aim is to provide educational opportunities for moderately disabled children in general school system. The scope of the scheme includes the preschool training, counseling for parents and community involvement. Besides providing the allowances for books, stationery, uniform, transportation, attendant, the reader, escort and hostel facilities, and also for the assistive devices, it provides for the special teachers for disabled children and also some resource rooms. The aim of integrated education was to provide educational opportunities for children with special needs in regular schools, and it aims to facilitate their retention in the school system and place the children from special schools in common schools. In 1982, this scheme of integrated education was transferred over to the Department of Education of the Ministry of Human Resource Development. This centrally sponsored scheme of integrated education, it provides the educational opportunities for the children with special needs, and it also aims to facilitate their retention in the school system and then place them in common schools which has children already in the school system after they acquire the communication and the daily living skills at the functional level. The scheme provides for the expenses on books and stationery up to rupees 400 per annum, the actual expenses for uniforms, that is rupees 200 per annum, the transportation allowances of rupees 50 per month, and if the disabled child resides in the school hostel within the school premises, no transportation charges would be admissible, and reader allowances of rupees 50 per month in case of blind children up to class 5th. And this scheme also provides the escort allowances for severely disabled children with lower extremity disability at the rate of rupees 75 per month. The actual cost of the equipment subject to a maximum of rupees 2000 per month for a period of 5 years. Besides all these, the provisions for teacher salaries, facilities to the students in terms of boarding, lodging allowances, the reader allowances, the transport allowances, the escort allowances, the cost of equipment, the cost of uniform and the cost of removal of architectural barriers and provision of resource room, all these come under the aim of the integrated education scheme. However, the educational administrators have been slow in grasping the value of integrated education. but it was successful in creating the awareness on the importance of integrating the children with special needs in the mainstream of education. It is a fact noted in the National Policy of Education. This is about the importance of the integrated educational scheme and its aim. Another important paradigm shift in the area of education of the children with special needs was initiated with the thinking that any difficulty that a child exhibited in learning was attributed not to the problem within the child, but to the school system. The organization and management of schools and the various programs of teaching and intervention could also be the one of the causes for the child's learning difficulties. The new whole school policy is also referred to as the social or environmental model, and it rests on the theory that the child is the product of his or her experiences. So, the education of the children with special needs has become a national perspective. After the International Year of Disabled Persons, people from each corner of the world became aware of the fact that large number of the disabled children reside in the developing countries and in the countries concerned with increased attention to fulfill the needs of these challenged children. Enabling the Legislation Act, the Child with Special Needs Act and the National Trust Act are paving the way for implementing the education of inclusive education through SSA, that is the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan vehicle towards ultimate aim of mainstreaming. The efforts to educate children with special needs. It began soon after independence when the Ministry of Education established a special unit to deal with the special children. The ministry drew on the experiences which has already gained by the non-government organizations in the field of special education since the last 2 decades, which saw the establishment of the first school for deaf in Bombay and the first school for blind in Amritsar. Before the end of the century, a number of special schools for blind and deaf were set up. This had firmly established the special school tradition, which continued up till the mid-1950s. At the same time, certain international agencies like the Royal Commonwealth Society for the Blind, they began experimenting the integration of the visually impaired children with other children. Around 1970, the success of international experiment in placing the children with disabilities in regular schools began to be noticed. The importance of the value of integrated education was also seen by its reference made in the National Policy of Education. So, this is about the integrated education. The first most important one is the National Policy on Education. The National Policy on Education brought the fundamental issue of equality to center stage. Section 4.9 of the policy clearly focuses on the needs of the children with special needs. The objective should be to integrate the physically handicapped with the general community as equal partners and to prepare them for normal growth and to enable them to face life with courage and confidence. The measures that has to be taken in this regard are, wherever it is feasible, the education of the children with motor handicaps and other mild handicaps will be common with that of the others, and the special schools with hostels will be provided as far as possible at the district headquarters for severely handicapped children. Adequate arrangements will be made to give vocational training for the special children or the special individuals. The next policy is plan of action. POA, the National Policy of Education, was followed by the Plan of Action. The Plan of Action suggested a pragmatic placement principle for children with special needs. It postulated that a child with disability can be educated in general school should be educated in a general school only and not in a special school. Even those children who are initially admitted to special school for training in plus curriculum skills should be transferred back to the general schools once they acquire the daily living skills, communication skills and the academic skills. The next policy is the Rehabilitation Council of India Act. The Plan of Action was strengthened by the enactment of RCI, that is Rehabilitation Council of India Act. The experiences showed that there was no mechanism in the country to standardize and monitor the training of the special educators and other rehabilitation professionals in the country. Therefore, the Parliament of India enacted the RCI Act, that is Rehabilitation Council of India Act. Subsequently, it got amended again in 2000 to establish a mechanism for monitoring and training of 16 categories of professionals required in the field of special education and rehabilitation of the persons with disability. The next policy is the Persons with Disability Act, that is the Equal Opportunities Protection and of Rights and Full Participation Act of 1995. The most landmark legislation in the history of special education in India is the Persons with Disabilities Act of Equal Opportunities, Protection of Rights and Full Participation Act. This comprehensive act, it covers 7 disabilities. They are the blindness, low vision, hearing impaired, locomotor impaired, intellectually handicapped, leprosy cured and mental illnesses. Now let us have a look at the National Trust Act. Another landmark legislation is the National Trust Act. In 1999, the Indian Parliament passed an act entitled the National Trust for the Welfare of the Persons with Autism, Cerebral Palsy, Intellectually Handicapped and Multiple Disability. This act seeks to protect and promote the rights of the person who within the disability sector have been even more marginalized than the others. This is all about the policies for children with special needs. Let us now move on to see the disability in 5-year plans. The first 5-year plan. This witnessed the launching of small unit by the Ministry of Education for visually impaired in the year 1947 and subsequently a training center for adults with visual impairments was established. The second 5-year plan. During the second 5-year plan under the Ministry of Education, a National Advisory Council for Physically Challenged started functioning to advise the central government on issues concerning the education, training and employment of the disabled. The third 5-year plan. In third 5-year plan, attention was given to the rural areas and to facilitate the training and rehabilitation of the physically challenged. The government formulated the policies around some services, planning employment exchange for the physically challenged, teaching and provision of work facilities in home itself or in the neighborhood for those who are not mobile, the provision of recreational facilities, the physically challenged and at least 3% of job reservations and job facilities to be made available for the physically challenged. The fourth 5-year plan. In fourth 5-year plan, more emphasis was given to preventive work for people with visual, speech and hearing impairments. The National Centers for the Physically Challenged were instituted to serve as a demonstration projects in various parts of the country and provide necessary training facilities. The sixth five-year plan. During the sixth five-year plan, the national policies were made around the provision of community-oriented disability prevention and rehabilitation services to promote self-reliance, economic independence, social integration of differently abled in the community, and comprehensively the primary health care for these special people. The 10th five-year plan. The 10th five-year plan, it aims to provide universal elementary education by the end of the plan, and it also aims to provide basic education for the unreached segments and the special groups. The special intervention packages like the adoption of the child-centered practices are focused on groups like the girls, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, the working children, children with special needs, and the urban deprived children, children from minority groups, children who are below poverty line, the migratory children, and in the hardest to reach groups. After this, let us have a look at Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and Right to Educational Act. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan SSA has been operational since 2001 in partnership with the state government to achieve universalization of elementary education. This adopts a zero rejection policy and uses an approach for covering various existing schemes and programs. It covers the components under the education for children with special needs like the early detection and identification, functional and formal assessment, educational placements, aids and appliances, support services, teacher training, resource support, individualized educational plan, parental training and community mobilization, planning and management, strengthening of special schools, removal of architectural barriers, research, monitoring and evaluation, and focus on the girls with special educational needs. The RTE, Right to Educational Act of 2009, after a continual demand of making education a fundamental right from all the corners, the government made the 86th Amendment of the Constitution of India, and the 86th Amendment introduced the new article of 21A, making the right to education of the children from 6 to 14 years of age a fundamental right. Article 51A(k) was added to the Part 4A of the Constitution as a fundamental duty of parents to provide opportunities for education to the children aged between 6 to 14 years. The right of children to Free and Compulsory Education Act of 2009, commonly known as the RTE Act 2009, it was finally passed by the Parliament on 26 August 2009, and it notified February 16, 2010 to come into effect from April 1, 2010. This act puts the responsibility of ensuring the enrollment, attendance and completion on the government. The RTE Act tries to safeguard the rights of the children belonging to the disadvantaged groups, the weaker sections, and protect them with any kind of discrimination and ensure their completion of elementary education. This is all about the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and the Right to Education Act of 2009. Now, let us look at some of the international declarations for the advantage of the children with special needs. The international promotions and protections of human rights was originated in the foundation of the United Nations by the end of the World War II. In the year 1970, the disability was viewed with a different angle which was established as a human rights approach. This approach given away to the major international declarations related to the rights of disabled. All the member countries enforce the declaration as per the law of the land. There are various declarations. Let us have a look at them. The first one is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in United Nations. The General Assembly of United Nations adopted the declaration, and some of the articles like the article 1, 2, 22 and 25, all these are relevant to the needs of the children with special needs. The next law is, or the declaration is, the Universal Declaration on the Rights of Intellectually Handicapped Persons. The General Assembly of United Nations, it declared the rights of intellectually handicapped person, and this was the first step towards the integration of persons with disabilities. And the third declaration is the Universal Declaration on the Rights of Disabled Persons. This declaration was adopted on 9th December 1975. And the next declaration is the World Program of Action Concerning the Disabled Persons. This was formulated as a result of the International Year of Disabled in 1981. It is an international strategy to enhance disability prevention, rehabilitation and equalization of opportunities related to the full participation of persons with disabilities in social life and national development. And the right to quality education. Education has been the highest possible quality to help every child reach his or her potential, and that the quality should be consistent across the regions, different populations, the rural and urban settings. Quality in education can only be achieved through development of the child-friendly inclusive learning environments dedicated to the holistic approach to children's development. All learning environments, the educational content, the teaching and learning process should reflect the human right principles. This means addressing the children's multiple rights using the strategies that builds the links between the school, the family and the community. Although there is no single definition of quality education, it is broadly understood to incorporate the opportunity for both effective cognitive learning together with the opportunities for creative and emotional development. In order to achieve these goals, the education for children with disabilities must encompass the positive learning opportunities, providing appropriate support to all the children and investment and support to teachers to enable them to teach within the inclusive environments, the right-based learning and assessment, the child-friendly environments and the safe and healthy school environments. All these have to be focused upon. So, today we try to understand the policies and programs for children with special needs. First, we have understood the integrated education scheme and its aims of providing education in general school system for the children with special needs. Then we have understood the inclusive education, its aims and goals. And then we have also understood the policies of the National Policy on Education, the Plan of Action, the Rehabilitation Council of Indian Act and other policies which aimed for the holistic development of children with special needs. And also we have understood during the 5-year plans the major concern for developing the children with special needs. And then we have also understood the international declarations which promote the development of children with special needs. Hope you have understood the lesson. Thank you.